Sports video games are usually only enjoyed by sports fans, but in rare situations, a sports game is so well made, so accessible and so fun, that it becomes a worldwide phenomenon enjoyed by nearly everyone, even if they don't pay attention to sports at all. NBA Street Volume 2 might just be the best example of such a situation. It's been nearly 2 decades since its release, yet the game is still commonly crowned as one of the greatest sports video games ever made. The NBA Street series was a spiritual successor to NBA Jam, and while the first NBA Street was a pretty good game by itself, its sequel, Volume 2, was an even better, incredible, legendary game that transcended genres, and it blew up. Some call it the greatest basketball video game ever made, some call it the best video game of all time. I call it a masterpiece. While newer basketball games such as NBA 2K22 have better graphics and more realistic gameplay, these newer titles just don't feel as special. Maybe we're spoiled by the rapid evolution of technology, but back in the PS2 era, certain games just felt magical. They released on a disc, in full, with no option to patch them down the road. Releasing an unfinished game was not acceptable, nor was it common. Microtransactions didn't even exist. NBA Street Volume 2 felt like a love letter to basketball, a passion project made by people who strive to build something great. Profit wasn't the motive, creating something remarkable was. Street Volume 2 painted a picture of basketball like no other game before. It didn't feel like your average sport in this game, but instead an entire world with its own history and culture. Everyone wants to dunk, to jump from the free throw line and poster somebody, to defy gravity and become superhuman. And that's the power NBA Street Volume 2 gave us. After the success of NBA Street, EA started producing a sequel. Members from the NBA Live games, which were great at that point in time, and a few remaining members of the original NBA Street team, spent over 2 years developing Volume 2. The game's producer, Will Mazel, also hired developers who had no experience with sports game development. To make a game that anyone could enjoy, you need variety within your dev team. The Volume 2 team spent months educating themselves on the history of streetball, hip-hop, fashion, and more, aiming to fully submerge themselves into the culture of the sport. They even visited some of the most iconic street courts in New York City. In an interview with GQ, the game's technical art lead Adam Myhill said, "We steeped ourselves in the culture as much as some white dudes on the west coast of Canada could." The team was heavily inspired by this Nike Freestyle commercial that aired during the 2001 NBA All-Star Game. Featuring a mix of street ballers and NBA players showcasing really impressive skills and moves that you'd only see in streetball, the commercial had a vibe that the team at EA Big really wanted to capture. There was no voiceover or acting in the commercial, just raw streetball talent, which is what really caught the attention of Mazel. He actually found the director of the commercial, Jimmy Smith, and hired him to help create advertisements for Street Volume 2. Smith did much more than that. He hired the voice of the game, Bobito Garcia, who flew in to record lines for the game. When recalling his time working on the game, Garcia said, "They booked me, I got up to Vancouver, stayed an entire week, and they gave me like pages and pages of script. Pages and pages of script. And I looked at them and I told them, I was like, yo, I have to be allowed to ad-lib here because this is not how we talk." They were like, "Yeah, no leash, freak the f*** out." Essentially, they just wanted to bring some more authenticity to the game. No knock on EA, but they're based in Vancouver, which has a wonderful playground basketball community, but the writers of Volume 2 were all like hockey players. And I'm not even making that up. When Nike released their Dr. Funk advertising campaign, the team took notice. I think Nike Freestyle captured the core gameplay experience we wanted the gamer to have. Moves that blew you away yet seemed so simple to execute and would entertain over and over and over, Mazel said. Dr. Funk is definitely more of the cultural vibe and visceral experience we wanted our audience to be immersed in. In one way, it was about combining the magic and awe of the athlete with an experience that was unique to only a few places on the planet, like Rucker Park. Then Garcia and the rest of the team came up with a fantastic idea. What if we threw the concept of time out the window? and had old school legends play against modern NBA players. And NBA Street Volume 2 was born. So what made Volume 2 so special, especially when compared to the first NBA Street title? It simply had more of everything. More game modes, more players, more courts, more moves, more. There's the tutorial Street School, where newcomers and returning players from Street 1 can learn about the new gameplay features and practice them. The pickup game mode is self-explanatory. While this game was an incredible multiplayer experience, it had over 40 hours of offline content that was well worth your time. From the awesome Be a Legend mode, where you create your own player and develop his skills as you ball on every major street court, to NBA Challenge, where you take your team of players against other squads led by NBA players and unlock new players along the way. The more you play, the more you unlock, which is very addicting in the best way possible. And there was no way to monetize this, so unlocking new players and courts was fair and rewarding. If you pay full price for a game, why should you need to pay more later on? Street 2's only objective was to be fun, something modern sports games have completely forgotten about. The game featured courts from across the country, including New York, Seattle, Chicago, LA, and Oakland. Unlockable players included Dr. J, Jerry West, Bill Russell, multiple versions of Michael Jordan, and many more historic NBA players, all with unique moves, attributes, and abilities. Gameplay was very similar to Street 1, with 3-on-3 action and no fouls. It was fast-paced, unrealistic, and amazing. A ton of new moves were added, and despite the game's intentional lack of realism, matchups between NBA players were quietly accurate. You can play like MJ with MJ, just in an exaggerated fashion. The new moves included the kick pass, be the oop, off the Hize, back to Papa, and more, and they could be combined together along with the turbo and trick button to get creative. Just like in real streetball, the potential ways to get past a defender and score were limitless. There was a new game breaker system with more options to choose from after you fill the meter up. You can remove a point from your opponent or add a point to your score, like in Street 1, but you could also sacrifice your meter to reset your opponent's game breaker, or you could save it for a level 2 game breaker. Take NBA Street 1, a fantastic game, and make it somehow 10 times better. That's NBA Street Volume 2. The soundtrack is a massive reason why this game is so loved. In the first NBA Street, due to budget issues, they couldn't get all the songs they wanted, so it felt incomplete and lacked cohesion. With Volume 2, that changed. Because Street 1 did so well, EA gave the team more resources to work with the second time around, resulting in one of the greatest video game soundtracks ever. Exclusively hip-hop, Volume 2's soundtrack creates an immaculate vibe. Many artists, including 50 Cent, were invited to help curate it. NBA Street Volume 2 went on to be the most successful and most popular street video game ever. While 2 more NBA Street games released later, Volume 3 and Home Court, they were missing a lot of what made Volume 2 stand out. The game's iconic font was gone, the old school uniforms were gone, the visual style changed, and the newer titles became more focused on modern streetball rather than celebrating the nostalgic and classic history of the sport. Gameplay regressed to be more realistic, and as expected, the series slowly died off. Kyrie Irving, an NBA player known for his crafty handles and finishes, grew up playing streetball in New Jersey. He has said that basketball is not a game, but an art form. That idea is shared with the team that created Volume 2, which might just be the greatest basketball video game ever made. Because it wasn't trying to be realistic, it wasn't trying to look like a broadcast, it wasn't trying to mimic anything. It was simply trying to be great, and it succeeded. I doubt we will ever see another game like Volume 2. As the years go on, sports games are regressing. They all focus on the wrong things. Graphics may look nicer than ever, but games like NBA 2K feel soulless. Where is the love? Sports games aren't like they used to be, and it's not just nostalgia. The ability to release an unfinished game and patch it later, the hyper-monetization of online game modes created solely to suck money out of consumers, the yearly release cycle, and a lack of competition are major reasons why. But I believe the #1 reason the genre has regressed is because games are only made with one thing in mind today: profit. When profit is the only motive, you can feel it in the final product. When a game is made out of pure passion, it just hits different, like a work of art. NBA Street Volume 2 is one of the last examples of such a practice. Thanks for watching.